Hello and welcome to Contact Sport. I'm Paul Kennedy. Today we'll look at Formula One, cricket's betting scandal and the Boomers' near miss against Argentina at the World Championships. And then we'll look in depth at Australian swimming after a lacklustre performance at the Pan Pacs. What can we expect at the Commonwealth Games and beyond?
Right now we're 6 out of 10 and we've got much to do in the next 2 years. Now, how that's going to transpire eventually on the world scene remains, but we're committed to getting the best result we possibly can in London, and it depends on your opposition as much as what you do at home yourself.
More from Leigh Nugent in a few moments, but firstly to Turkey, and the Australian men's basketball team has been beaten by Argentina at the World Championships. The score was 74-72. The Boomers led for much of that match and had a chance to pinch it right at the end. Let's take a look.
4 on the shot clock. Ingles from the corner on the buzzer of the shot clock. 3 given. Side. Finds Nielsen, who nails a 3. Who might Scola for the finger roll. It's a 3-point Argentinian lead just into the last minute of the 4th. Mills, no need to panic. Don't take an outrageous shot, but that's not outrageous because that is a big 3 for Patrick Mills. 60 against Australia. Prigioni on the arm. Prigioni for 3. 3 points from Pablo Prigioni. Patrick Mills looks for it. It's almost a 5-second call. The 3-point shot is no good. Australia missed on the buzzer and the ball is kicked into the unknown, and Argentina, well, is that going to be a tech? The Australian players are saying no, the game's over, Brett Brown agrees.
Briefly in cricket, the betting scandal involving Pakistan's players will no doubt broaden as the week goes on. British police investigating whether players were paid money to underperform. It raises questions of match fixing from Australia's last series against Pakistan, and it brings into question Pakistan's future in international cricket. Let's hear now from Pakistan manager Yawar Saweed.
Now, we heard that some of the Pakistan players have had phones confiscated and computers confiscated. Can you confirm that?
Telephones, yes. Only these 3 gentlemen, the police which was there, they have taken their mobile phones away.
Now, Mark Webber has finished second in the Belgian Grand Prix. The Australian began on pole but missed the start. He was able to make his way through the field eventually and avoid the crashes. Lewis Hamilton also drove well to avoid any trouble in the slippery conditions. He won the race and leads the championship ahead of Webber. Let's see the finish and hear from Webber now.
Yeah, I had big bog on the formation lap, and then we made a small adjustment to the clutch, which I thought was hopefully going to get rid of that situation, but then I had it even worse on the main start itself. So did my normal procedure, but in the end, well, you need to go through it and see what happened. But obviously I was pretty surprised, and then once you have a micro moment on the start in a Formula One race, obviously it's massively exaggerated with the performance of the other guys getting normal starts.
Mark Webber there, still in with a real chance of being a world champion at the end of the year. To our feature story now, and is there a medal drought looming for Australia's swim team? The Aussies were below their best at the Pan Pacs. In contrast, other nations looking to surpass Australia in swimming looked impressive at the European Championships. What does this mean for the future of one of our most popular sports? Amy Bainbridge posed that question in this interview with Australian head coach Leigh Nugent.
Look, we had some mixed results at the Pan Pacs. We're up against the greatest nation on earth in swimming, the USA, and they were really on fire over there. Our team, I think, had a third of our team's new athletes, first-timers. So we're starting with a clean slate, I think. There were some encouraging performances there, but, we've got a long way to go compared to the US.
We do. I mean, the Australian men, for one, didn't win a single medal in the freestyle events, 50 metres to 1,500 metres. That must have been a disappointing result. I mean, is the era of Australian swimming over or in a pause?
No, I don't think it's over. We always produced someone along the way. We had Eamon Sullivan up to 2008 in the sprint events, and obviously Grant Hackett. But Grant's retired now, and Eamon has had difficulty with injury and illness and so on over the last 18 months. He's sort of fighting his way back, but he's still not in top form. I would expect him to come through over the next 12 months, and there's a young sprint man now James Magnussen, who I've got my eye on. I think he's going to be a name to remember for the future.
Do you think there's enough young Australian swimmers coming up through the ranks, or is there a problem that perhaps the AFL and rugby league and those other quite glamorous sports are pinching some of the young athletes away?
Oh, I think certainly all sports who are looking for anaerobic power and aerobic endurance, like swimming and the sports you've just mentioned, are all after the same type of athlete. And definitely our men are probably being attracted to some of those sports. But I think swimming's got a very good development base, and we can bring enough athletes through our system. It's just a matter of keeping them on to the age where they're big enough and strong enough to be competitive internationally.
Given the recent results at the Pan Pacs and European Championships, what's a realistic goal for the Commonwealth Games?
Well, the Commonwealth Games is a different competition. You know, we're racing, you know, the Commonwealth countries, obviously, and our main opposition there this time is going to be England. But we look at them as the British countries anyway, combined. So they've put a lot into their swimming program in the last decade or so, and they've really lifted their standards. So it's going to be a battle between Australia and England. It is, because Chris Nesbitt, their head coach, spent a lot of time in Australia. Have we sold off some of our intellectual property in a way, do you think? And could it come back to bite us? I'm sure he will have learned a lot while he was in Australia, and no doubt Bill Sweetenham, who has headed up their program, had been there for 8 years, and he's had a big effect. So Australia's been a positive for England, but nevertheless, we've got a good program going here too. So what are our prospects for London and Rio? What is the state of swimming at the moment? And we know that swimming's responsible for a massive medal haul at the Olympics, and if we're not on track for that, the public is going to be pretty disappointed. Yeah, well, you know, there's a great expectation on the swimming team. We've got 2 years to prepare for the Olympics, which a lot can be done there. We have a program, obviously, that has produced swimmers over a long period of time, and it'll continue to do that. And the competitiveness is going to be determined over the next couple of major competitions, the World Championships next year, and then obviously the international events that lead up to our trials, and then the Olympics. But we'll know, I would think, by the middle of next year about where we're positioned, and be able to give you a much better indication then. Now, the speed suits that were so popular at the Beijing Olympics and so controversial are now no longer. Did that have an impact on Australia's training program, do you think? Would there have been areas that perhaps would have been lacking in training because we were relying too much on these faster suits to get those quicker times? Yeah, well, the whole world was in those suits. So, you know, Australia was probably the least experienced with those high-tech suits in the end last year at the World Championships. We didn't have access to them until the last minute, really. So our training has been done with the suits of some sort for the last, 10 or 12 years. So it was just these high-tech suits at the end that made a massive difference. I think people had modified their training because of them, and there's been a reversion back to some of the older methods. People need to be fitter, they need to have much stronger core bodies, and we're seeing the effects of that now. So I think for Australia, we're no different to any other country. We're coping with the changes. So without giving away all Australians' secrets, are we getting back to basics with our swim training here? Certainly. I think we can see our program starting to go back to higher volume programs, which had been a drift away from that for the sprint events in particular with these suits. Now we're finding that people are starting to do a little bit more aerobic work and making themselves fitter because they're not getting the assistance early in their race from those suits. So, yeah, back to basics is an important concept for us. Back to basics, but I mean, if we do look at the results compared to the US this year, I mean, we're lagging a fair way behind, aren't we? I mean, how concerned are you about that? Oh, look, we're concerned about it, but we can only do with what we've got. And we've got the makings of a good team, but nothing to threaten the USA at the moment. And I would think any country that went head-to-head with the USA, like we did last week, wouldn't fare any better than we did. So you don't think there's any true cause for concern then at the moment? Or? I think there's always cause for concern. And what are you going to do about it? Well, we've got our programs that we use to develop our athletes in the areas particularly where they're strong. So at the minute, our women's team is the strongest side of our Australian swimming team now. So you go to where your strengths are and you try and improve your weaknesses. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you, because are the men the weak link at the moment? I wouldn't call them a weak link, but they're certainly not ranked at the same level as our women are at present.
So in terms of the next 2 years or so, I mean, our real medal hopes for London will already be in the program, but is it a fairly shallow talent pool, do you think, in the Australian swim team at the moment? Is it just one of those stages you go through?
Yeah, I think there's a cyclic nature to sport, and we see that in all sporting teams, I think. Happens all the time in AFL football, for instance, and I think with our swimming team, we've had some superstars like Ian Thorpe and Grant Hackett, Libby Trickett in recent times, and you know those people are very hard to place. They're sort of once in a 50-year proposition. So you know, without them there, we're looking for more, but it's got to come from more of a team approach. You know, there's a young woman now, Emily Seabohm, who's hit the headlines, and she's an outstanding talent. Now, you can't do it just with one athlete, though. It's got to be a team approach, and obviously we work on our relays, very important for us. And the last Olympics we medalled